Hey 7th graders, welcome to Chapter 3, Lesson 1. In this chapter, we're going to try to do an entire chapter without using our calculator. So, in this chapter, remember, no calculator. Chapter 3, Lesson 1. We're going to be talking about integers and absolute value. So our objective is to read and write integers, so we need to know what those are, and find absolute values of an integer. Our standard for today is 7th grade number system standard number 3. Let's go ahead and look at our vocab so we can define these words and figure out what they mean. For our vocab today, we have two vocab words. We have integer, which is any number from the set of numbers from like -4 to +4, and it can actually go on. So it's actually any numbers that we typically see on a number line. So we could have -5, -6, -7, -8, and we could all the way go up to 100. We can count to whatever we want to, but usually it's a number that's not a decimal and it's not written as a fraction. So an integer is any number that continues without end, like counting. Absolute value is the distance a number is from 0, and it's always expressed as a positive number. So when we talk about distance from something, we're always saying that that's a positive number. So if I said, how far is it from Bowling Green to Florida, we would say maybe it's 2,500 miles. And if we change direction, we said, how far is it from Florida to Bowling Green, it would still be 2,500 miles. It doesn't matter which way you look at it, we're still talking about a positive number when we talk about distance from something. So absolute value is the distance away from 0, and it's always expressed as a positive number. Let's go ahead and look at our first example and see what happens. In our first example, we're going to be talking about an integer. So our job is to write an integer. Now remember, when we looked at integers, it was like -4, -3, -2, -1, and positive numbers. So integers are positive or negative. So we have to read this statement and see what type of integer we would write for this situation. An average temperature of 5 degrees below normal. So I'm seeing a word that means something that's either positive or negative, and that word is actually below. Below is actually a negative number. So if I said an average temperature of 5 degrees below normal, the integer I would write is -5. And that would be an integer that I could write for the situation. Since it says 5 degrees below, below is a negative word, so -5 is my number. That's how we write integers. Let's do another one. In example 2, we're going to write another integer for the situation. Again, integers could be positive or negative. This one says a loss of 12 yards. So look in the sentence for a word that tells you if it's going to be a positive number or a negative number. Since it says loss is something that's negative, we're going to say the integer would be -12. And that's our answer to this problem. In this example, we have to still write an integer, positive or negative, for the situation. It says an average rainfall of 5 inches above normal. So it says above. Above is a positive word. If below is negative, above is positive. So we're going to say that this answer is a +5. And that's the integer for this situation. Another one where we're writing integers. In this example, we're talking about a snowfall of 4 inches above normal. So we look for a word that tells us if it's positive or negative. And again, that word's above. So we're going to say that this answer is a +4. And you could write just 4, because if you just write 4, that is also positive. The only time it's a negative if you see a minus sign or a negative sign in front of it. So you could have +4 as +4, or 4 there. So in example 5, our job is to graph the set of integers on a number line. So we're going to graph 4, -6, and 0 on a number line. You don't have to write the integer anymore if the integer is already given to us. We just have to place them on a number line. So here I have a blank number line, and if you don't have a number line, just draw a line across and put arrows on both ends. Our job is actually to put these on the number line. And since -6 is the biggest negative number, I'm going to start with -6 first. Then I'm going to count up. So I made my number line starting at -6, and I counted up all the way up to 5. And I tried to make it so they're equal spacing apart. Now, all I have to do from this point is actually put a point everywhere where these numbers are. So if I have to graph -6, I'm going to put a point at -6. That's my first point. My next one is at 4, so I'm going to put a point at 4. That's right here. And my final one is at 0, so I'm going to put a dot or a point right at 0. So these are my 3 different points on the graph. -6, 0, and 4. So for example 6, we're going to do one more where we're graphing on a number line. These are integers that we're going to graph on the number line. So we're going to go ahead and plot these points. -2 is my biggest negative number. So I'm going to go ahead and start with -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so I have all these points on the graph. Now what I want to do is actually plot these points. So -1, I'm going to go ahead and put a point where -1 would be. 3, go ahead and put a point where 3 would be. In -2, put a point where -2 is. And if you're looking at this, you should be able to see that 3 is the biggest number, -1 is bigger than -2, and -2 is the smallest number. If you can plot numbers on a number line, you can tell smallest to biggest or biggest to smallest. Whatever is furthest on the right, that's the bigger number. Let's go ahead and change up and look at absolute value now. In example 6, our job is to evaluate the expression. You need to know what the word evaluate means. Hopefully you're thinking that the word evaluate means to solve the expression. And that's really what it means. So underneath the word evaluate, you should maybe write the word solve, which means we got to figure out the answer of this. Well, if you see these lines that go down, that actually means absolute value. So this is saying, what is the absolute value of -4? Absolute value is how far away is -4 from 0. So -4 from 0 is 4 spaces away. And I could show you that by drawing a number line. Here's 0, here's -1, -2, -3, -4. So if I'm looking, -4 is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away. And notice that we wrote that number as a positive. And that's because absolute value is always a positive. Now you don't always have to draw a number line, but you want to think that how far away is this number from 0? So -4 is 4 spaces away, so 4 is my answer. The absolute value of any number is always a positive. So the absolute value of -4, positive 4. And that's how we're doing absolute value. So let's look at another one, but this time, let's not draw a number line. Let's just figure out the answer. So in our 7th example, we're going to find the absolute value, that's what the two lines that go straight up and down mean, of -5. How far away is -5 from 0? So without drawing a number line, think about how far that is from 0. 5 spaces. So if it's 5 spaces away, then 5 is my answer. And notice again, it's a positive 5, not a -5. So the absolute value of -5, positive 5. Again, absolute value is always positive. The last thing we have to be able to do is to evaluate the expression whenever we have absolute value and there's an operation in between. So in this problem, we have the absolute value of -5 minus the absolute value of 2. So we have to actually solve the absolute values first. It's kind of like parentheses. So we solve what's inside the absolute value first before we do the operation in the middle. So the absolute value of -5, we know, is positive 5. The absolute value of 2, how far away is 2 from 0? It's 2 spaces. So the absolute value of 2 is 2. So the problem we're actually solving is 5 minus 2, and 5 minus 2 is 3. And that's the answer to this problem here. Let's do one more problem, and you guys are done for a day. For our final example, we're going to be solving the absolute value of -4 plus the absolute value of -3. So, all we got to do is change the absolute values to their regular integers. The absolute value of -4, how far is -4 from 0? Well, it's 4 spaces. The absolute value of -3, how far away is -3 from 0? It's 3 spaces. And 4 plus 3 is equal to 7, and that's my answer to this problem. You guys did awesome today. Hopefully you guys are understanding what integers are, how to graph them on a number line, and how to find absolute value of numbers. If you don't, make sure you ask questions in class and I will help you. I will see you tomorrow.